I drove 6 hours for Christmas Eve. They gave my seat to a neighbor. "She's alone this year," my mom said. "We figured you'd be fine sitting in the kitchen." I said sure, then took my coat and left. 30 minutes later, my sister texted, "Wow. Can't handle being overlooked, huh?" I opened my banking app, froze the mortgage assistance, and shut down the streaming account mid-movie. But what they wrote at 9:04 p.m. changed everything. There has never been anything in my life more absurd than being told by my own parents that they didn't want me at Christmas dinner. Not just figuratively. I mean literally, not wanted. Not welcome. Not enough chairs, not enough room, not enough me. They didn't say it like that, of course. They made it sound like I'd understand. Like it was a reasonable sacrifice. I'd driven 6 hours to get there. Got stuck behind 2 jackknifed semis, listened to the same 20 songs looping on a half-working playlist, and stopped twice for gas station coffee that tasted like hot pennies. I was exhausted, but Christmas was Christmas. You go. Even if it feels more like obligation than tradition. I walked through the front door, set my bag down, and my mom was already waiting there with this look like she'd been rehearsing the line all day. "So, small change. We gave your seat to Mrs. Langford. She's alone this year." I blinked. Thought maybe I'd misheard. "She's sitting with us at the table. We thought you'd be fine having your plate in the kitchen." They said it like it was noble. Like I was doing something kind. But I knew what this was. Mrs. Langford owns that discount flooring outlet 2 towns over. My parents had been circling her for months, trying to charm their way into a cheap deal on new hardwood for the living room. That's what my seat was worth, a potential discount on planks and glue. And the worst part? Mrs. Langford knew. She sat there at the table, looking at me with this guilt-ridden smile like even she felt how humiliating this was. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I just said okay, turned around, and walked back out the front door. No one followed me. I drove aimlessly for a while before ending up outside Maya's place. My cousin. She didn't know I was coming, but when she saw me standing on her porch, she opened the door without asking questions. I sat on her couch and watched Die Hard while eating whatever frozen pizza she had in the freezer. At 8:30, I got a message from my sister. "Wow. Can't handle being ignored, huh?" That's what she sent. Like it was a joke. Like I was some brat throwing a fit because I wasn't the center of attention. I opened my banking app. Stared at the balance for a while. Then I froze the mortgage payment. After that, I went into my Netflix account, the one we all used, and canceled it. Gone. All 5 profiles, including the one my dad labeled the big guy. But the real thing that broke me happened at 9:04. A text from Dad's number, signed by both of them. "We talked about it. You've always been a failure. You ruin every holiday, every get-together. We don't need you anymore." That was it. Clean. Final. I showed Maya. She didn't say anything. Just handed me a drink. And that's when something shifted. Not rage. Not sadness. Just clarity. They didn't know what I built. What I owned. What they relied on. But they were about to find out. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was hurt, honestly, that faded somewhere between Maya handing me a drink and me canceling their Netflix account, but because I couldn't stop thinking. My brain had gone mechanical. Everything was cold and sharp and methodical. I wasn't thinking about the past. I was thinking about what they leaned on me for. What I'd built. What they used. And how I could take all of it back. By sunrise, I was sitting at Maya's kitchen table with my laptop open and coffee that she brewed without saying a word. She knew. She'd seen it in my face the night before. She didn't ask questions. First thing I did was log into the back end of the company I run. I started it in my 20s, tech support and IT systems, first just local, now nationwide. They had no idea how far it had grown. They thought I fixed printers and set up emails. But the truth is, half the systems in their house were supported by software my company manages. I was the one who installed everything, the mesh Wi-Fi, the smart locks, the alarm system, the cloud storage backups. All under my business account. Not theirs. At 7:10 a.m., I suspended their cloud license. That would kill their home camera network, the automatic door locks, and the thermostat control. Gone. Then I logged into our family phone plan. I paid for 5 lines, mine, theirs, and my sister's. I didn't cancel. That would have been too easy. I transferred ownership to them. All of it. If they didn't accept it in 72 hours, the lines would go dead. They'd been coasting on me for years. Quietly. Indirectly. Every holiday, every event, it was the same. I'd come in with my laptop, fix what was broken, add new tools, improve their life. They never said thank you. Never asked what it cost. It was expected. Then came the mortgage. This one took longer. I had to contact the lender directly. They remembered me. I'd done a favor for one of their reps with a massive server failure last year. I explained I wanted to be removed from the co-signer agreement on my parents' refinance. That kicked off a review process. I knew they wouldn't qualify on their own. Not anymore. Not without me. After that, I went after the small stuff. Hulu billing, transferred. The password manager they used, deactivated. Their access to my Amazon Prime, gone. The storage unit I paid for that held all the old holiday decorations and my dad's vintage tools, lease cancelled. I sat back in my chair after a few hours and finally looked up. Maya was on the couch with her laptop, scrolling like she was doing her own version of cleanup. She caught my eye and gave this little nod. "They're not used to the world without you," she said. That hit me. Because it was true. That afternoon, I got the first message. My sister again. "Why aren't the security cameras working?" I ignored it. Then one from Mom. "The mortgage company called. Are you messing with something? You need to fix this." Fix. Always that word. By early evening, I got one from Dad. Just one line. "This is childish." That one made me laugh. At 9:17 p.m., the Netflix thread popped off with 3 people trying to figure out why they couldn't log in. I didn't respond to any of it until right before bed. Then I sent one message. "You said you didn't need me." No emoji. No punctuation. And I turned off my phone. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because what I hadn't told them yet was how much more was tied to me. And how I wasn't finished cutting them loose. Not until they felt it in every corner of their perfect, curated little life. I expected silence. I thought they'd retreat into that smug little bubble they'd always used when someone upset the balance. Talk behind closed doors, twist the story in their favor, then act like they were above it all. But they didn't even last a day. By morning, they came at me. At exactly 8:04 a.m., I got the first message, group text from my parents and sister. Dad went first. "You're being dramatic. Grow up." Then my sister. "You've always been the outsider anyway. Why are you acting surprised now?" And my mom, of course, the cherry on top. "You think we owe you for things we never asked for? You're not a martyr, John. Stop playing the victim." I read it 3 times, not because it hurt. I just couldn't believe they were still trying to pretend none of this was real. That I didn't exist as the backbone of half their lives. So I didn't reply. I logged into my company's admin portal instead. My business was never small: IT systems, back-end security, cloud storage, cybersecurity protocols. We handled everything from server rooms to home automation for mid-sized businesses. But 2 of our earliest clients were family: my parents' accounting firm and my uncle's dental clinic. I'd put them into our infrastructure back when I was still building the company, gave them free access to tools, did all the setup myself. I never billed them. Not once. They called it helping family. I called it unpaid labor. I clicked into the system, pulled up both client profiles, and reclassified them as terminated accounts. It wasn't just about emails and printers. I controlled their entire system. Their firewalls, password protocols, software updates, even their backup recovery, gone with one click. I didn't shut anything down maliciously, but I stripped out my company's tools. I left a message in their admin dashboard. "This system was maintained at no cost for over a decade. Effective today, your account has been closed. Thank you." By noon, my phone started blowing up. Missed calls from my mom, my dad, even my uncle. I didn't answer any of them. Maya was sitting on the other side of the kitchen, watching me quietly. Then she got a call. My mom was trying her now. She declined it. We sat in silence for a while until Maya finally spoke. "They never thought you'd stand up to them. They're not mad. They're scared." She wasn't wrong. At 2:36 p.m., my dad finally broke. He sent a message that read, "You never amounted to anything. You think this makes you powerful? We pitied you. That one didn't sting. It made me laugh. Because he had no idea. They had no idea that I owned half the software their business depended on. That I negotiated their vendor contracts. That the security certificates tied to their domain were purchased under my name. They never asked how anything worked. They just expected it to. So I made another call. Quietly. To a client of mine who specialized in business tech support for less prepared clients. I told him they'd be reaching out soon. I told him to charge them market rate, plus priority fees. Nothing malicious. Just business. Then I took a walk with Maya. We hadn't done that in years. Ended up by this old lake house that used to be our childhood summer spot. She was the only one in the family who never tried to manipulate or guilt me. She always kept her distance. But now she turned to me and said something that stuck. They treated me like I was selfish for wanting to be my own person. They're just mad you're finally doing it too. When we got back, my email inbox was flooded. My dad, now panicked, had sent messages asking for system backups. My uncle had written a message with the subject line, "Urgent, need help restoring server access." My mom had sent a string of emails about not understanding what went wrong with their accounting platform. I didn't reply to any of it. Instead, I called my financial advisor. I told him to move my holdings into a new trust, one that explicitly excluded my parents and sister from any potential access. I wasn't going to bankroll their futures anymore. Especially not after what they'd said. At 9:40 p.m., I got another text from my sister. "Hope this was worth it. You're alone now." I turned to Maya and read it out loud. She just shook her head. "No, he's not." That was the difference. I wasn't alone. They were. And it was only just starting to hit them. By morning, everything felt quieter, but not in a peaceful way. The silence had weight now. Like a house where the pipes have burst behind the walls but no one wants to open them up and look. I didn't even check my phone until after coffee. I already knew what I'd find. Sure enough, there it was, an email from the front desk manager at my uncle's clinic. Subject: "We're completely locked out. Please help." She didn't even try to pretend it was business as usual. She said they couldn't access patient files, couldn't process billing, and were being forced to reschedule appointments because their systems had gone dark overnight. No backups, no alternate setup, nothing. She said, "We thought everything was hosted independently. We didn't know it was all you." I didn't respond. I forwarded the email to a colleague I trusted at a commercial IT firm that charges real rates and doesn't tolerate non-paying family clients. I added a note. "They'll be needing full system recovery and reinstallation. Bill at your standard emergency rate." 2 hours later, I got a string of texts from my mom. First one: "Let's talk." Then: "We didn't mean it. We were drinking, we were stressed. Everyone says things they don't mean around the holidays." That phrase, "everyone says things," hit like a rotten echo. Because I remembered every time they'd said something ugly, then expected forgiveness just because time passed. That's how they operated. Say it, deny it, pretend it was a joke, and then blame you for remembering. Then the longer message came in, one that clearly took her a few drafts. "It wasn't about not wanting you there. We were trying to help Mrs. Langford feel included. She's important to us, especially now that she's giving us a deal on the new flooring. We thought you'd understand." That was the moment. The one where it all turned real. They didn't deny it. They just explained it like it made sense. Like trading me for cheaper hardwood flooring was reasonable family strategy. I read it out loud to Maya. She didn't even blink. Just said, "So your seat was worth $2 a square foot." I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. I couldn't believe I had ever called these people mine. At around 2 that afternoon, my dad called Maya. He didn't even bother trying me directly anymore. She didn't answer, but he left a voicemail, long, nervous, rambling. We listened to it on speaker. He said he didn't realize how much of the business infrastructure relied on me. He admitted they thought I was just fixing computers, and didn't realize I'd tied the entire back end of their firm to my company's architecture. Then he said something that stuck with me. "We just thought you liked helping. You never asked for anything." Right. Because if you never ask, they don't have to give. And if you don't make noise, they call you quiet instead of invisible. At 4:19 p.m., I got a text from my cousin Ellie, my uncle's daughter. She said she heard what happened. Then she dropped the real kicker. They're trying to spin it like you destroyed the family. They told me to stay away from you. Said you were dangerous now. Dangerous. Like standing up for yourself is a threat. Like they're afraid of what I might say, or worse, what I might no longer do for them. I called Ellie. We talked for nearly an hour. She told me stories that made mine sound tame. Pressure to take over the clinic, to marry someone from their church circle, to behave. When she refused, they called her ungrateful. Said she was throwing away everything they'd built for her. Sound familiar? By the end of the call, Ellie told me she was cutting ties with them too. Said she'd rather rebuild everything from scratch than owe them another thing. She told me she admired what I was doing. I didn't know how to respond. No one had ever said that to me before. Not in this family. That night, just before 10, my phone buzzed again. My sister. Are you still paying for my spring tuition? She didn't even try to hide it behind small talk. I stared at it for a minute. Then typed, "No," and hit send. I could picture her reaction. Her face falling, her hands shaking, maybe even running to our mom with the phone. And I could imagine what my mom would say. He's just being dramatic. He'll come around. But this time, I wasn't coming around. This wasn't revenge. This was rebalancing. I wasn't taking anything from them they hadn't already tossed aside. I was just refusing to be their safety net while they set the house on fire. By midnight, Maya and I were sitting on the porch, wrapped in old blankets, not saying much. She broke the silence first. "They're going to come here. You know that, right?" I nodded. "Let them." They showed up the next afternoon. I knew they would. Maya knew too. The only question was how long it would take before pride buckled under panic. The doorbell rang just after 2. I didn't get up. Maya did. She opened the door, didn't invite them in. It was my mom, dad, and sister standing there like they were on some sort of apology tour, but with none of the apology part figured out. I stayed sitting at the kitchen table. I heard my mom ask if they could come in. Maya said they could stand on the porch. That was it. They didn't like that. My dad pushed past her anyway. Walked in like he still owned the place. My mom followed, but slower. My sister just stood at the edge of the porch, arms crossed. He tried starting with something neutral. "You look tired, John." I didn't respond. My mom started into her speech. About how families fight, how Christmas was stressful, how things had been taken out of context. She said they didn't mean what they said in the messages. That it was just talk. That they were embarrassed. Then came the phrase I was waiting for. "We need you." There it was. No apology. Just need. As if saying the truth outright would reset the board. Like if they could just admit it, I'd undo everything. I stood up. Maya stepped beside me. And I said it plainly. "You didn't want me. You made that clear. You said I ruined everything." My dad tried to cut in, started saying something about heat of the moment. I kept going. "You used what I gave you, took credit for what I built, and when I stopped giving, you called me dangerous. A failure. And now you want the system back, not the son." My sister finally snapped. "So you're just cutting everyone off because of one night?" I laughed. For the first time in days, it was real. This isn't about one night. This is about 20 years. My mom's voice cracked, but I didn't care. She said something about how none of this was intentional. And they were just trying to make the best of the holiday. And they didn't know how much I'd done. That last one? That's the part that sealed it. You didn't know because you didn't care. It worked, and that was enough. I told them to leave. They didn't argue. But before my dad stepped out the door, he said something that almost sounded like a threat. "You'll regret this. Family's all you have." And I said, "No. Maya's family. Ellie's family. You're just people I grew up around." After they left, I checked my phone. Another email had come in, this time from the mortgage lender. They'd officially removed me from the co-signing documents. My parents were now fully responsible for their payments, and judging by the rates and the loss of my credit rating in the deal, they were going to have a hell of a time keeping up. At 8:17 p.m., my sister texted one last time. "You were always jealous of how close we were." I didn't respond. I forwarded the message to Ellie. She responded a minute later. "Insane. Do they even hear themselves? Then she added, "I'm coming over this weekend. We need to talk. I have an idea." The pieces were moving. The circle was shifting. And the ones who had always been so sure of their control were now completely exposed. No tech to hide behind. No money I'd wired them. No security I'd quietly maintained. Just them, in their big house, on their own, paying full price for everything they used to get for free. And that was the point. Not to destroy them. Just to show them what it feels like to stand alone. Ellie showed up Saturday just before noon, holding 2 coffees and a folder under her arm. She didn't bother knocking. Maya had already told her to walk in. She looked around, smiled like she hadn't been able to breathe all week, and dropped the folder onto the kitchen table. "This is everything," she said. "Emails, messages, even screenshots. I've been collecting it for years." I opened it slowly, expecting drama, but what I saw was worse: cold manipulation, veiled threats from my uncle about pulling her out of his will, attempts by my dad to get her fired from a job she'd taken in a firm he didn't approve of. It was like reading my own story, just with different names and a slightly different flavor of betrayal. "They've done this to all of us," she said. "Just in different ways. I was always the obedient one, until I wasn't." She looked up at me then. "I want out. Not just emotionally. Legally. I want to start something new, something that isn't tied to them. I want you in." I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the folder. It had been days since my parents left my cousin's porch, and I hadn't heard a word since. No new calls. No new messages. Silence. But it wasn't peace, it was regrouping. I knew them well enough to know they were planning the next move. Maybe contacting family friends, maybe trying to twist the narrative. Maya spoke up. "We could turn this into something. The 3 of us. You've got the tech. Ellie's got management. I know marketing. Let them keep the scraps." That night, I drove to my childhood home. Not to reconcile. To close the door properly. The house looked smaller. I parked out front and sat there for 5 minutes before getting out. My dad opened the door. My mom stood behind him, as if waiting to gauge my mood. My sister was nowhere in sight. I walked in without saying a word and stood in the living room, scanning the same furniture that used to feel like part of my life. Now it looked like a stage set for something fake. "I came to say thank you," I said. They looked confused. "Thank you for reminding me who you really are. For pushing me far enough to see it." My mom's eyes welled up, and she reached out, but I stepped back. "You don't get to cry and keep the benefits." My dad tried to speak, but I didn't care what he had to say. I looked at both of them. "You made me feel like a placeholder my entire life. You only called it love when it was convenient. Now it's your turn to figure out who you are without me fixing everything behind the scenes." I walked out. Maya was waiting in the car. Ellie texted just as I buckled in. "We're building this. And we're leaving them behind." And we did. In the months that followed, we launched a new firm, fully independent. Every day was a quiet kind of healing. There were no big speeches, no final blowouts. Just distance. Distance and clarity. My parents sold the house less than a year later. The mortgage had caught up with them. My sister dropped out of college. They tried reaching out again, but by then, I was somewhere else. Somewhere real. They weren't villains. They were just selfish, small people who believed love was leverage. And now they were on their own. The same way they'd wanted me to be that Christmas Eve. Only difference? I didn't end up alone. They did. The update. A few months after we launched our new firm, something totally unexpected landed on my desk. A written apology from our old neighbor, Mrs. Langford. She'd been watching from the sidelines, and apparently, the moment she saw our startup gain traction in a regional tech magazine, she realized what we'd been doing, and what my parents had tried to cover up. She'd always felt awkward that Christmas Eve, and now she wanted to own that moment. Her message was genuine, handwritten, a rarity these days. She wrote that she felt like a pawn in their scheme, apologized for standing at their table when I wasn't welcome, and strangest of all, offered to refer our new company to all her contracting clients. She signed it. "Not alone this Christmas." I told Maya and Ellie about it, and we laughed, not out of mockery, but relief. That one person had seen the truth, and decided to do something honest. It didn't undo the past, but it was a small gift. The update didn't hit my parents, or my sister, in the headlines. They had their own problems now and rarely called. But in that envelope, stuffed between the thank you note and a Collins Roofing referral list, was a single Christmas card, with no names inside, just a drawing of a pine tree and the words, "Next year, no furniture trades." I smiled at that, then tucked it into my office drawer, alongside a photo of me, Maya, and Ellie on launch day, grinning like we'd already won. Turns out, sometimes, the unexpected ally isn't the one you saved, it's the one who quietly remembers you when nobody else does.